From doubts about his role on the team to the future looking bleak for the former Rookie of the Year, here's the shocking truth about Ben Simmons. I'll start with how he's been unable to find a place for himself in the starting five for the Brooklyn Nets, which is a fall from grace for someone who was once considered the next big thing in the NBA. Ever since Simmons made the switch from Philadelphia to Brooklyn, life hasn't been going according to plan. It was supposed to be the ideal career move, with little to no responsibility on the offensive end because the Nets had both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on their rosters. Unfortunately, just a year after joining the Nets, things have taken a turn for the worse for Simmons. Both Kyrie and Kevin Durant left Brooklyn for Dallas and Phoenix respectively, while Simmons was left behind with the relatively young Nets side. Due to all the trade deadline drama in mid-February 2023, the Australian star now finds himself in a completely different role from the one he'd envisioned. Jacques Vaughn, the Nets coach, has stressed how important Simmons is to the side. But the fact is, despite his unavailability, the Nets got some big wins late in the regular season to confirm their automatic berth in the playoffs. If anything, the games Simmons did play since the deadline were the bigger issue. He just didn't fit in this new-look Nets team, and fans think this is not a good sign of things to come. I don't blame them. In Simmons, you have someone who should be taking up the mantle and leading a young roster. After all, he's been in the NBA for nearly 7 years now. But the 2022-23 season was the perfect example of how he hasn't changed at all since his arrival. Flashes of brilliance in terms of creativity and on the defensive end, availability concerns, and streak close during the postseason. It's a story that we've seen far too many times. First in Philadelphia and now in Brooklyn. Well, fans aren't as patient as Jacques Vaughn. He may think there's a lot more to Simmons' game. Fans must, however, be persuaded by the Australian himself. Something he can only do if he actually shows up and plays. And considering he's missed the postseason for a second successive season, it ain't looking good. One fan on Twitter claimed that he couldn't wait for the Nets' front office to trade Simmons. And another added how Brooklyn risks damaging their young team if they stick with him. Like I said, they'd much rather not have him on the team at all. Plus, he doesn't look like a player who could fit in this Nets team, especially on this new-look roster. With Kyrie and KD around, it was completely fine if Simmons didn't shoot the ball at all. He got criticized for it, but it didn't affect the team as much. However, with both KD and Kyrie out, things have changed. A lot. Simmons can't rely on his defensive contributions alone to find a starting place on the team. The NBA has changed dramatically. Now, you need solid scoring contributions from all 5 players and the rotation to win games. So, if the 26-year-old continues to be stubborn about taking shots, then he's quickly going to become an unpopular figure in the dressing room. And the organization will have no choice but to move him on, because the players aren't going to sympathize with Ben's so-called inability to shoot the ball. They want to win. They're young and they're passionate. A lot like Ben was when he arrived in the NBA all those years ago. But unlike Simmons, they are willing to learn and become better, while the former Sixers star is happy being exactly the same player he was out of college. And in a cutthroat industry like the NBA, he won't make it much further. Sure, he's on a huge contract right now, but does Simmons actually think that he'll be making something similar when it runs out in 2025? I really don't think so. His stock has already taken a massive hit, and the way he's going right now, it's only going to get much worse. According to many reports, the Sixers regretted not trading Simmons earlier, when they had the chance to get a lot more in return. In the end, they still got a good deal, with James Harden coming the other way. As far as the Nets are concerned, they're not going to get as lucky. In fact, they should consider themselves fortunate if they can get rid of him this summer for whatever they get in return. It's better to get his salary off their books, and if they can get a couple of good pieces or picks in return, it won't get better than that. And when this is the thinking of the franchise you're playing for, it doesn't look good for the player himself. Simmons needs to sit down with his advisors and agents this summer and think about what he wants from his career. This offseason is the most crucial of his entire career. He needs to find a way to offer something that helps the team he plays for. All I know is he won't be able to wing it on the basis of his defensive skills alone anymore, because the truth is, Simmons is just an average player. The greatest trick Ben ever pulled was convincing the NBA that he was actually good. In truth, all he has to his game is a good eye for a pass and the ability to sometimes get stoppages on defense. Is that good enough to help him remain in the NBA for a long time? Probably not. It's not like he's the worst player, he's just not worthy of that franchise tag or the first pick. He's definitely a bust. If you can't improve your shooting in 7 years of training with the very best in the business, and then you're also reluctant to take shots after all this time in the NBA, then more than ability, it's about your mentality. But the fact is, most analysts and scouts predicted this when the Sixers made him the #1 pick in the 2016 draft. There were lots of doubts about Simmons' attitude. I say kudos to them because they saw it coming. Unfortunately, though, it's a shame for everyone involved. The franchise that signed him, the NBA, you, me, and all the fans. There were so many expectations from Simmons. And perhaps the worst part is that those expectations weren't unrealistic. This is someone who had the talent to become a big name in the NBA. The raw talent at his disposal is still insane. Unfortunately, the way his career has unfolded over the last few seasons, franchises would be stupid to put their future at risk by getting him in. There have been rumors linking Simmons with a move to the Golden State Warriors. Given how the rumor mill churns out the most laughable speculation at times, this is extremely hilarious. Yes, on paper, Simmons would fit the bill for the Warriors, but can you not see the irony in all this? The best three-point shooting team in the NBA, recruiting the worst three-point shooter the league has ever seen? Yeah, I don't think Steve Kerr, the head coach, and the front office of the Warriors will ever sanction that move. Of course, all this said and done, Simmons is still only 26. He still has a chance to get his career back on track. The question is, will he do so? Back to what I was saying earlier, if he has to get his career on track, this offseason is the best time to do it. There's the FIBA World Cup coming up as well. If Simmons is truly serious about basketball and about saving his career at the top, then he has to show up and put in some big performances. If he does that, the Nets, especially if they stick with Vaughn, will give him a chance to impress in the upcoming season. Plus, it's not like they have any other options. Ben Simmons isn't a man in much demand, and his future is looking very bleak, unless he can get his career back on track over the summer. 26 might be a young age, but time is still running out regardless. The NBA is fiercely competitive, and when you've been the #1 pick, Rookie of the Year, and a 3-time All-Star, all eyes are on you to impress. If Simmons doesn't start getting his career back on track from this point onward, he'll go down in history as one of those what-if players. Because it's not a question of talent or ability, it's not a question of whether he can stay fit for a prolonged period. It's only about his mentality. Does he have the attitude to succeed in the NBA? If the answer is yes, then he's got to start showing it starting now. If the answer is no, well then, he's got a couple of years left on his contract he can enjoy all he wants. But once that contract runs out, I don't see any franchise offering him anything remotely close to what he's earning right now. He'll be lucky to remain in the NBA beyond 2025, and will need to accept a very limited role, something that many fans don't expect him to do. So, from a bleak future in the offing to doubts over his role in the team, this was the shocking truth about Ben Simmons.